My first impression of Bill was when I was 19, and I was volunteering for the Golden Trailer Awards. And I was taking tickets, and Bill came up to me, and he showed me his tie. Now, on the outside, it was a regular tie, black, but on the inside, there was a painted naked lady, and I was like, oh no, my virgin eyes. And I was quite shocked by the image. And then I found out about his naughty cartoons and all his work, and I was just like, wow, this is this great artist. And he just, floored me, and I just always remember that moment.
Hello, my name is Terry Gilliam.
What the hell?
I've been asked to say a few words about Bill Plympton. The first word that comes to mind, of course, is Bill. And that isn't Bill as in Bill Plympton. That is Bill as in, where do I send the bill, Mr. Plympton, to you? I have to be honest here. I am being paid large sums of money to say these fine and positive words about Mr. Plympton. But what is important to me as a former animator is, when do I get paid and how?
I was so happy that you called and told me you were going to do this documentary about Bill. He's one of the most talented, brilliant people I've ever known. I met him in Ojai years ago, back in the 80s. So many people admire him. He has done so many great things. He is a man that will be recognized for many years to come for his great works. A great statesman. I carry a picture with me. I certainly have it on the wall, but I occasionally even travel with it. He and Hillary and I have been friends for a long time.
And we're talking about Bill Plympton.
Bill Plympton? You're doing a documentary about Bill Plympton?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
Well, because we admire him as well.
You're entitled to your opinion. He's, I'm sure, a fine fellow, and I got a nice couple days work out of here high, and okay, I don't understand the documentary about Bill Plympton. But that, again, it's your camera, your time. You do what you want. I really have to run now, so.
Let me tell you a little something about Billy Plympton you probably don't know. You ever hear of the Clackamas River? Clackamas! You ever heard of that? Well, that's a river up north, way up north. In fact, it's one of the biggest dang rivers you ever seen in Oregon. And it's scary. It's blue, it's white, it's got holes in it. I mean, if you were to try to ride it on your own, you'd need someone like Billy Plympton riding with you, riding point, holding you back, staying on board. He's a cowboy, but he can ride, he can do some hole riding. That's Billy Plympton.
This is your lucky day. You get to blow my face away. But be careful with the lust you show. This kind of thing just tends to up and go. Hold me now, I'm falling into. Hold me now, I'm falling into you.
The evolution of an artist is very interesting. I think it's a very important one. If I were to typify my evolution, my own evolution, I always wanted to be an artist ever since I was 3 or 4 years old when I saw cartoons on TV, and I was always drawing anyway. And of course, in school, I was the class artist. I was always doing sketches of my classmates and my teachers and getting A's in art. That was never a problem. The question that I have that I think is interesting is, why did I succeed when every other school in the country had someone similar to me, the class artist? You know, why did I become this somewhat big success? And I think I think there's 3 reasons why I was succeeded and why others didn't. I was very ambitious. I really wanted to be a famous artist. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to come to New York and be a big success. And I know a lot of kids from Portland, Oregon, who were better artists than me. They were really good artists, and they just didn't have that burning ambition. They just wanted to, you know, sit back and draw whatever they wanted to draw, and they didn't care if other people saw it. They didn't care if people really needed to see it. Number 2, I really work at it. I'm always trying to make myself better. I'm never sitting back and saying, okay, I finally had a successful film, I can relax now. I'm always trying to learn new things. I'm always going to films. I still see 2 or 3 films a day. I still draw every day. And I think, you know, here I am, 62, 63, and I'm still trying to learn, still trying to be a better drawer. And I think that's really important part of it, is learning to be a better drawer. And the 3rd reason is, I think there was some luck. You know, I sold my films to Spike and Mike and the Tourney of Animation and MTV, and I was sort of the poster boy for indie animation. And I think that really was another reason I was able to succeed. So yes, I do believe in evolution for an artist's career. I think it's very important.
My name is Mike McCullough. I met Bill Plimpton about 1961, freshman, sophomore year in high school, somewhere around that time.
He's very charming and very popular. He's one of those popular guys in school, and I wasn't popular. I was very shy and introspective, and I lived way out in the woods, so I didn't really have a lot of friends. But he took me in and became a good friend of mine, and we would sit in the back of the classroom, and he would always you know, comment on the teachers, saying, you know, nasty things, and then I'd start laughing, and then I would get in trouble, and I'd have to go to the principal's office because he was always doing these outrageous things.
I remember in high school that Bill didn't date much. He was just a genuinely nice guy, and you'd say certain things and he'd immediately laugh and oh, I didn't know that. I mean, just simple things that you thought everybody knew. Bill really didn't, or at least he didn't act like he did.
He was the one that when he ran for student body president, I did the poster for him, and that's the one where I got in trouble with the principal for doing pornographic drawings.
Somebody came up with the idea, Marilyn Monroe. So we had Bill do a big poster-sized picture of a woman with blonde hair, a very buxom woman, dressed in, I don't remember, a bathing suit if I remember right, and Bill painted this, and we put it on the wall of the school. And I think it said, MM doesn't stand for Mike McCullough, it doesn't stand for Marilyn Monroe, it stands for Mike McCullough, vote for Mike McCullough.
My other buddy, Bill Bonnickson, was also running for another office. He asked me to do a poster for him too. So I did a Bridget Bardot, you know, vote for BB, and it's Bridget Bardot, and then on the bottom it said no, vote for Bill Bonnickson.
And by today's standards, these pictures weren't much, but back in 1963, principal apparently didn't like the voluptuous breasts that Bill drew on this drawing, and Bill was called in the office. The principal came over the announcer and said there'll be no more posters like this painted on the walls of the school. You know, here's Bill, he's just smiling and laughing the whole time, but we had to take him down, and we actually lost the election. I don't know for that, but we lost it.
First of all, we lived way out in the country. We lived on a river, the Clackamas River, and instead of playmates, I had trees. Trees were my playmates. So basically, I had to entertain myself. But I don't don't regret it. It was really wonderful growing up. There was a river there. We went swimming every day in the summertime. It was like a vacation. It was just really wonderful.
We were a very close-knit family, raised on 5 acres on a beautiful river here in Oregon, and we were allowed to run the reign of the 5 acres, and we were always having adventures. We build caves in the blackberry bushes, and we'd sneak around and hide in the caves. We would build rafts out of floating debris and play Huckleberry Finn on the river. We built a swing in the trees on the river and would swing out and jump into the water. We would go to the Oregon coast every summer, and we did hikes, and those were always adventures, and Bill was always the center of attention in these adventures. He would make it wild and crazy and pretty exciting.
Culturally, I was very deprived. There was no comic book shops, there were no movie cinemas, no museums, no kids to hang out with, go to drive-in movies. We were so isolated, and I didn't have a car also. So I felt that a lot of my artistic impulses were really just my own motivation, my own love of drawing. I could entertain myself for hours just doing drawings, on my sketch pad on pieces of paper.
He got a car, and I think it was one of his first cars, and it was a convertible, and he had a pillow between the 2 seats. And I had no idea what that pillow was for, and I asked him, and he explained that that was where his girlfriend sat, and why she would sit there and not necessarily in the passenger seat. And I didn't understand that at all, and so it was pretty, that was one of the things that you learn from your older brothers.
I used the cartoons, my art skills, as a way to meet people. In fact, I remember in high school, to meet girls, I would do little sketches of them and give them a drawing of themselves. And I look at the drawings now; they're really bad. The girls look really ugly, but they thought they were nice, and they were complimented that I could draw them, and I love to make drawings of them. Also, I probably shouldn't say this, but I used to do sexy drawings of girls in school that I liked, with negligee and garter belts and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think any of those drawings survived, but that was my own source of pornography, was these sexy drawings of girls in schools that I had crushes on.
I always kind of figured the reason Bill's an animator and a cartoonist is for one reason, for the women, He'd always go home with the best women, but one time he didn't. One time I met this girl, and I was with Bill when we did, and I've been married to her for 25 years, so I'm thankfully left one for me.
When I first met him and knew him, I didn't really understand about his work very much. I just saw him as this really nice guy from Portland, really sweet, I had a good time with him, and then as the years went by, I sort of started being more aware of his work, and I was surprised by, some of the images that I think it's because he would draw things that I would be afraid to say to people. He was drawing and cartoons and doing things that are like thoughts deep in the recesses of my brain or anyone else's brain. And I'm very squeamish, so a lot of the eye gouging, bloody limbs and stuff is just really hard for me to take. I'm like, oh my God, who is this person? But I think how he changed my life was that he's honest about that. He really puts it out. He really draws what he's thinking, what he sees, what he hears people saying, the images of people, and he takes that risk. He really draws really harsh reality.
This story tells a little bit about where Bill came from. His dad is totally opposite of him. He was this just big, boisterous guy, and he was always yodeling, and he just always had this big grin on his face, just really amazing and wonderful. Then my fiance, we were thinking about getting married on their property, and it's this beautiful place out in Clackamas in Oregon. And it's just gorgeous, gorgeous property. They have llamas and everything. It's just really wonderful. And, it's kind of formal because we're talking, my husband had never met him before. And so, it was formal. This is family and, And so So we were talking about how much we love nature, because we live in the country too. And he was like, really? You really love nature? And we're like, yeah. You know, we were bird watchers. And he goes, you will not believe what I saw this morning. I'm like, what? He goes, I got out my binoculars and I couldn't believe it. I was looking off in the distance and I totally focused and I looked and I couldn't believe it. It was a double-breasted cocksucker. This is how he said it to us, just like that.
I remember for Christmas, I think I was 10 years old, my folks bought me a paint set, an oil paint set. Maybe I was 12, I don't know. And so this is one of the first paintings I did, and I wanted to show it because it's the first time I ever really went beyond just regular, realistic kind of painting. This actually tells a story. And my granddad's actually built boats, and this was an old boat that he built. It's about the same size actually, it's almost real life size. And so I took the boat, the model boat, and made a little story. So you can see the rope here has become waves of the ocean, and the wallpaper behind, you see little fish swimming. So it becomes more than just what you see. It becomes a little more, a little deeper, a little more something to think about, something to consider, to ponder. And I think it's the first time I ever really got into telling stories with paintings, with pictures. And so this is kind of an important painting. You would see these big fog banks come in, mist, very, very misty. And it would give the whole atmosphere, the terrain, a real magical kind of feel, like you were in some fairy tale and you expected some unicorn to jump out behind a tree. It's very surreal. And I think that whole idea of surrealism and distorting reality with the mist and everything, you can see that in my work. This was made the week after my first acid trip. I'd moved to New York. This was in 69, 70, I think. I don't have a date on this. And I took acid and I went to the Prospect Park out in Brooklyn. And everything was so separated like this. Every shape was kind of a different little color, a different little shape. If you'd seen my paintings before this, they're very realistic and natural, and natural lighting and natural colors. And this was the first time I ever really tried to stretch things and exaggerate, like her hip is really exaggerated. And I wanted to bring the hip forward like it hits you in the face, and it just kind of, the white just kind of really sticks out, whereas her head kind of recedes into the distance with her arm too. To survive, I did a lot of screw covers. It didn't pay much. I think it was $100 a cover for a screw cover. And so this is some of my screw covers. Personal favor for Al Goldstein. He wanted to be Jabba the Hutt. He wanted me to do a drawing of him. This is just before he retired and went to the hospital, and he had sex on the brain, so he wanted me to do a sex on the brain. The Soho News. Apparently the Soho was getting into a lot of gay S&M parties, so they wanted to do a cover, and apparently a couple of guys got really wicked with whips and everything.
The great thing about Bill Plimpton is that he did similar to what I've done, in the fact that he got started in the world of adult and then went on to more mainstream stuff. Like I went on to reality shows, music videos, etc., etc. So Bill started out working in men's magazines, skin magazines. Worked for Al Goldstein. When you do, the kind of work he does, timing is totally essential. Good timing. Either when you're matching animation to voices, or when you have so many seconds to do a commercial, you have to fit it in, with your drawings. And it's a very hard thing to do, and he's excellent at timing. And again, so am I. I'm known for my timing, you see, because I'm known for having girls count down from 20. But listen, honey, is there anything any question you'd like to ask me while you're down there putting lipstick on your dipstick?
What was Bill Plimpton nominated for?
Bill Plimpton was nominated, very good question she asked. Bill Plimpton was nominated for a short called Your Face. So, the face this way, honey, and just jerk it a little bit like this with your hand. That's it. Okay, right there. Yeah. And start real loud. 20.
20, 19, 18, 6. Oh, wait a minute.
Okay, this is for you, Bill. This is sort of up your alley. I'll be your soldier if you want me to. Draw my sword
when I was in the Army, I was didn't want to go to Vietnam. This was the year of the Vietnam War. So I joined the National Guard, and they had to send me down to Fort Ord, which is in Monterey, California, for basic training. I was, I think, a third year in college then, so I kind of was very, very anti-war radical.
Upon the hills, fuel the fire, to comfort kids.
So I remember they took us out to the rifle range to do a rifle practice, and they laid me down on the ground, and we had our targets off the corner, and they handed me an M16, and I said, well, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to learn how to shoot a rifle because I really don't want to kill anybody. They go, what? You can't do that. And so they brought the captain over and says, this is Plimpton, you know, Private Plimpton. Shoot the gun or you're going to be court-martialed. I said, well, I gave him the gun back. I said, I don't think I want to shoot it. I'm not going to kill anybody. And so they brought over the major, and the major was really pissed off. You know, he said, you're slowing up the whole rifle range. You know, you fire that gun or we're sending you, you know, we're going to put you in prison. I said, well, I just don't want to do that. And it became kind of an issue, you know, a moral issue. And so they went off, the captain and the sergeant and the major, they went off the corner and started huddling and talking with each other. And they came back and said, so are you an artist? I said, yeah, I do cartoons. I said, well, here's the deal. We don't want to court-martial you, but you become the company artist. You do drawings all day. We won't court-martial you. And I said, yeah, that's great. So all day long I did drawings of guns and how to fire them and how to take them apart and all that, but I didn't have to fire one. So.
Down, gonna blow your fences down. Gonna blow your fences down.
I didn't realize it till I moved away from Oregon City that it was really the white trash area of Oregon. There was a mill there, a paper mill, and so it was the kind of people that just worked in the mill all day long, and it wasn't really intellectually challenging. So a lot of the people that I grew up with, the kids in school, were not that wealthy. They were kind of poor. And my dad was a banker, so we did all right. We weren't, you know, rich or anything, but we did all right. But a lot of the kids in my school were big into hunting, and they would get off like, you know, a week to go hunting. I thought, well, that's not fair. I got to go to school. I got to study. These kids get to go off hunting with their father and everything. I thought, what's the justice in that? And then I realized later on that this is how these people survived. They hunted the deer, and the deer would actually get them through the winter. And so it was a subsistence kind of living. And, you know, people like Tanya Harding is from that area. She was, you know, the perfect icon for white trash America.
He adores the fact that he's from Oregon, and especially that he's from the same hometown that Tanya Harding was born and raised, and because he loves that smut. He just, you know, he just craves any, like, every time he comes to visit here, he's always like, so what's the new smut in Portland? What's the new smut around, you know, Oregon? And he thinks that everything that happens around Oregon must happen right here in Portland or in Oregon City where he was born. And so I think he just draws on that kind of stuff.
The mud parties were insane. The hole got bigger. It was like a Bill Plimpton cartoon. Every year they would dig out more and more until you had a mile-wide city, which was a hole in the ground. And there was only this much riverbank between the hole in the ground. So I don't think I will ever forget his parents' home and the summers there, the swimming parties. Every time Bill came home from New York in the middle of summer, we would all go swimming there. In my entire life, I've never had more fun than at the mud parties.
One of the big adventures that a lot of people have had with Bill is to go roll in the mud across the river from his from his family's house on the Clackamas and just be kind of in a state of bliss. And so Bill would be there in the mud too. We would crawl like reptiles. You might look over and see Bill crawling toward you like an amphibian of some kind, and that would mean that it was time for you to hiss at him and start crawling toward him aggressively, as though you were going to maybe bite him in the neck.
They really don't look naked at all, because once they're in the mud, which is almost instantly, then they look like bronze statues. So it's really sort of, it's very artistic. It's more of like Rodin-like, because the mud is kind of running on everyone. It's hard to recognize some people because their hair is plastered against their head and they have their glasses off, and they may be, everything happens in slow motion because you can't move very fast in the mud. Your feet are kind of stuck, so if there's any action, you have to sort of drag. And it's almost like a form of evolution, like we're coming out of the mud, we're starting to evolve.
Your face is like a song. Your sweet eyes whisper, and I ran out to sing along. Your feet.
Hi, I'm Maureen McKelleran, and I wrote Your Face.
Your face is like a song. Your sweet eyes whisper, and I want to sing along.
I think it was just a dream I had of some guy's head doing these crazy things. And so I needed some sort of soundtrack, an audio track to go with this head transformation. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if he sang a song? And so I called Maureen up. This is how I recall it. I want to hear your side of the story.
Okay.
I said, Maureen, let's write a song together. A cornball song. In fact, you wrote some lyrics that were really beautiful.
Right, and you kept saying,
lyrics.
no. I was so frustrated.
I know,
what the hell?
I know, they were gorgeous lyrics. But I said, no, it's a comedy, it's a comic film. I want people to laugh. So I wanted this guy to be a real sleazy 30s vacuum cleaner salesman, used car salesman guy. And he sings this cornball song. And so, as I recall, we worked together on the lyrics, and then I was too cheap to hire a male singer. So I had Maureen play the piano and then sing the song, and then we slowed it down 1/3, I believe.
Right.
Singing a cappella, no longer lonely. Loving you only.
On this itty bitty island, we like to dance all day. The crabs and the fishies will be sad if you don't stay. We say you can't dance.
When Bill called me and said that we were nominated for an Oscar, it was just stunning. I mean, this was a very short film we worked on. I thought it would just make the rounds of the college circuit, maybe play in the local libraries. It was one of Bill's very first films, so it seemed like astonishing to me that it would get this kind of attention.
Somehow I wasn't aware that, when they announced the Oscars, I was sleeping in bed, and I remember some guy from Canada called me, from the Canadian Film Board. He says, "Is this Bill Plimpton?" I said, "Yeah." "Did you know you got nominated for an Oscar this morning?" I said, "What? Are you kidding me?"
I remember my grandma and my mother all getting together, they're emptying their piggy banks and saying, "You're going to stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel, this is it."
And I called my mom, of course, mom and dad, and told them very excitedly.
We were all excited. We borrowed clothes to go to the Oscars and flew out there.
We didn't have any money, so I rented a little Nissan car, a little tiny car, because I was so broke. And so we went to the Oscars, and all these black limousines come in, and there's black limousines, stretch limo, and then my little Nissan, a Toyota or whatever it was, comes in, and they say, "Get out, get away, you're not supposed to be in here." I said, "No, really, I'm nominated for an Oscar." And they thought I was a prankster or something.
So we really lived it up, and it was fun, and you know, we thought it would lead to multi-million-dollar contracts with Disney, which, you know, that didn't happen, but it was still really a thrill. And it did lead to our first feature film, which was The Toon.
Lost? No, I just don't know where I am.
Well, son, I've been around, but in Flooby Nooby, I finally settled down. Lazy rivers relax a while, the weeping willow cracks a smile. Up our mountain, see gambling sheep, leaning tower pizzas open all week. Mailmen backlit down the street, delivering letters with their feet. Trees drum, broke clouds sing along. Rush hour's only a second long. Floor and the ceiling are dying to date. Mother Wall says they'll have to eat. Dishes scrub, folks spuds bash themselves. Beans are swinging on a kitchen shelf. In Flooby Nooby, in Flooby Nooby. Rooty tooty bout Flooby Nooby.
Bill emerged on the scene at a time before the internet, before DVDs, before websites and blogs. So he was able to distinguish himself at film festivals. That was the way you did it back then. You can still do that today. Today it's a little harder. It's weird. It's a little harder and a little easier to be independent. It's easier because you can actually make a complete feature film by yourself with a computer. All the tools are there at your command. You know, things that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, perhaps, you now can have in a laptop computer. On the other hand, there's so much competition. There's so many places for people to be seen, whether it's film festivals or blogs and websites, or what do you do? Which ones do you go on? How do you make a name? How do you get noticed from the crowd? It's very, very difficult. Bill did this, of course, 25 years ago.
Remember, my son, just as one slice into a loaf of bread produces 2 pieces, you must multiply your wisdom. O my innocent one, listen not with your ears, but with your heart.
You know, in the business, we call him the McDonald's of animation, because he puts out these short films like one after the other. They're all the same, nothing different, nothing new, and it's cookie cutter crap, you know. And that's the way he wants to do it. That's the way he does it. But for me, it's just not the right kind of animation to do. I love Disney. You know, Snow White, Lady and the Tramp, you know, Cinderella. Those were beautiful, beautiful films. That's what animation's about.
Breasts turn into meat slicers, and eyeballs turn into Buicks, and nose hairs turn into clotheslines, and you know, a woman walks out of the distance and turns out she's actually walking on the bottom of the sky, and he just has a completely novel way of looking at the physical world.
And then his storytelling. Storytelling, he has a lot of problems. He can't follow a plot. You know, he does all these gags. It's just a gag after gag after gag. I mean, where's the story? Where's the drama? Where's the arc? The creative arc? You know, it's just not in there.
You know, people have sort of criticized him for not having more story in his work. But I was thinking about it, and it's kind of like listening to a Charlie Parker record and not liking the song he's playing. You know, it's not about the song; it's about what he does with it, and it's about Bill. You know, Bill takes a theme or a framework, you know, and just, you know, it's all about he's really an improvisational animator, I think. You know, everything, you never know where it's going to go.
Plimpton does this sex and violence, and nobody wants to see that. You know, that's his own hang-up. And that's, if he wants to do it, go ahead, you know, but it's just not for me. It's not for anybody. It's if he has problems in the bedroom, you know, keep him there. I don't want to see this crap on the screen. It's just a total waste of my time, and I know a lot of people feel the same way about the guy. Excuse me.
Bill does something different. He kind of recruits the rules of real life and brings them into that universe in order to play with them, in order to kind of like, you know, use them against themselves, as it were. There's a kind of a eroticism, for instance, to some of his work that really isn't erotic. You know, it's disturbing, and it's the kind of work that you'd say, wow, I've never really seen something like that.
Bill's characters, at times, are very horny.
Wait, darling, we're supposed to be working.
But Josie, we're in love.
Josie, don't be a tramp.
Hi, I'm J.O.
Think of your
Sanders.
reputation.
One of the things I've been asked to talk about, which is hard not to notice when you watch Bill's work, is the serious overrun of nudity and violence throughout his pieces.
You're a whore, slut, bitch, street trash, gutter tramp, pervert. And you're a prude, virgin, ice cube, lesbo, frigidaire, old maid, mopsava, carrot humper. How insulting!
The images that come at you sometimes are silly, sometimes they're crude, sometimes they're sexual, but he tends to morph things so that whatever you're feeling at that moment changes to something else.
The first word that comes to me when I'm thinking about Bill Plimpton's work is scratches or scratching, because that is what Bill does. He takes what we call a pencil. Now, this is an ancient mode of transferring ideas onto another medium, which in this instance is paper, another medium that was invented hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago and used by the ancients, possibly the Romans, the Greeks, and definitely Mr. Gutenberg. Bill takes these pencils and he does a slightly more modern version of a pencil called a colored pencil, and with these many colors will scratch on this paper an interesting little drawing. And then, having finished that, he will turn that page over and scratch another one. This is a very time-consuming business, but Bill seems to have lots of time on his hands. Perhaps he is not one of the social animals that so many of you, I'm sure, are. Perhaps his lonely existence, as many animators will attest to. I, for one, was lonely once, but now I'm an internationally famous film director and find everywhere I go I'm treated like a superhero. Bill Plimpton has yet to experience that.
Can you tell us any adventures you've had with Bill or watching Bill's work or showing Bill's work?
No, I never slept with Bill. Why is Bill's work different from other animators? Because he draws, because he's an artist, number one. He actually touches the paper. and renders. Just the texture, personally, the texture of what he does, and then the quality of his films and a true art form, and creating and then humor with it, and his sense of humor, which also spills over into our world, which is sick and twisted.
You have an idea. It's a little twisted. You know what? You make it so that other people can kind of enjoy that twisted sense of that you have of the world. And I think that's what Bill does best. He makes his ideas.
There was one film, one little like 40-second segment where I had to sort of kind of take it in. I think it was more Sex and Violence, where it was a date from woman's perspective, and then she eats and then she drinks and then the dick comes into her mouth, right? That was something where I felt the objectifying woman kind of weird. There's something weird about that episode that little weirded me out, and it always weirds me out.
I've seen a lot of animation, and there's nothing about his animation that offends me. I'm a little twisted myself, so yeah, I like his twisted artwork, and I don't find anything offensive about his work at all.
It's so very much Bill and his work. He tries to get inside his soul, which I get. And I think he has this determination to shock and leave people gasping. But in reality, I don't know whether it's his id or his ego. His work strikes me as very innocent.
You know, if you're an animator, you have to have some kind of obsessive personality to want to draw your films one frame at a time. When I hear live action directors say, oh yeah, we had 7 grueling days on set, I'm thinking, man, I sat in my chair for months just drawing the stack of drawings one frame at a time, and it's just a completely different art form in a way.
That might be a musical portrait of Bill.
I was lucky. I got into animation in the middle 80s. And this was that exact same time that independent film took off, and also animation took off then. The whole Disney resurgence with Lion King and Little Mermaid. The Japanese animation coming in, anime with Akira and films like that. MTV started showing animation. Simpsons started coming in about that time. Roger Rabbit was a big hit. All of a sudden, all these perfect storm of animation got together in the mid-'80s, and I was just caught up in that.
Well, there was a wonderful thing going on at MTV when Bill first started working with them, which was this tradition of taking the MTV ID and just sort of throwing paint on it. And a lot of independent animators were paid a reasonable amount of money to sort of have some fun with that and kind of do what they wanted with the MTV ID.
Bill is one of the fastest animators in the business. I mean, he's incredible. And in the world of advertising, people like to think that you've suffered for your art, you know, that things don't come out instantly. They want to make sure that you've really worked hard and you've given it lots of consideration. And I'll tell you, one day we had a call with an agency, and they went through their storyboards, and Bill calls me less than half an hour after the call, and he says, well, I've finished my director's boards. And we had allocated 2 weeks or a week for Bill to come up with director's boards. And I said, well, Bill, that's fantastic, but we have to hold back. We can't send it to them right now. They'll think that you didn't work. I mean, they'll think it just came too easy.
When I was 14, I saw Your Face on MTV, and it changed my life forever. I knew that the world that we lived in, you know, as I once knew it, was about to change forever. I know that's really like a melodramatic statement, but seriously, I knew that we were embarking on like new times. And I could feel like even as a kid that people were beginning to change socially, and Bill Plimpton was going to be one of those artists to sort of, you know, take a mirror and put it in front of your face and the world and sort of show them how funny the world was.
Well, it all started when young Bill Plimpton
saw 101 Dalmatians, decided he wanted to work for Disney someday. They offered him $1 million and wanted to own him, as he says, that he'd make films instead. But what happened was Disney saw this and said, hey, we got to get that guy in the payroll.
Right.
And you turned down $1 million to work for Disney, which was your dream?
Yeah, I heard that what they wanted me for was the genie in Aladdin, because it was real wacky and crazy, and they saw my films and they said, we want someone wacky and crazy. And it's tough turning down $1 million, especially when I was such a Disney fan, but I really had my own sort of perspective on how I wanted to make films, and I didn't want to make Disney films.
A man of principle, can you believe that? That's absolutely unbelievable. Rare, too.
You know, I heard him say once that Disney was interested in one of his ideas, and they offered him a lot of money to come to Disney and cook stuff up. And he said, "Wow, well here it is. You know, I made it. I can go to Disney, and they can, you know, I can work there, and I can get paid a lot of money." And he said, "But then they told me that all the work I do for them, they're going to own it." And so, you know, he stepped right back. It wasn't even a choice for him. And now, maybe that's the difference between me and Bill. You know, people pay me for my ideas, so you know they get the ideas. You know, that's how most of us have to work.
There was a whole period where there was a few rebels in there. Brad Bird was in there, and there was a period where there were people rebelling inside, and all those people left. So I imagine if Bill did go into Disney, he would have been one of those rebels and would have left. I mean, John Lasseter, who was there as well, I mean, he left because he wanted to try something new. And I just think if Bill did go into Disney or a big studio, unless they give him total independence in a studio, and it rarely happens, that he would have left.
At a time in which we have an increased corporatization of the filmmaking process, and everything's all about being as big as you can and covering as much ground and making millions and stuff, Bill is making his films. And he's showing the way for independent filmmakers. He's a great inspiration to a lot of independents.
A decision that everybody has to make. I mean, do you want to work for a company that gives you good money, health benefits, good security, your films are seen everywhere, you're taken care of, you probably make a lot more money than I do, or do you want to be independent and have that freedom to make whatever you want? No one's going to tell you to change it. No one's going to tell you that that's going to offend somebody, and you're probably not making a lot of money. And that's scales that everybody has to balance. And I chose the independent route, and I'm glad I did. I'm very happy being independent, but yet I have a little bit of jealousy of the huge distribution and money that they make on these Hollywood films.
It's working! Complete global communications! I can control everything! I can't be stopped now!
I always joke with friends, and I say that Bill is the great asterisk in animation. Because, you know, conventional wisdom is you can't draw an animated feature by yourself, except Bill Plimpton. You can't market and distribute an animated feature by yourself, except Bill Plimpton. You know, you can't merchandise an animated feature by yourself, except Bill Plimpton. It's like, I don't know how he does it. It's crazy, but somehow he just keeps spitting these things out.
Well, I'd say the biggest struggles for an independent animator is the financial aspects of it, because certainly if one could just work on their own projects and not have to think about having to eat, you'd be okay. But unfortunately, many artists have to take on other work in order to be able to afford the opportunity to make their films.
It behooves us to remind those that coming into it that not only do you have to learn some stuff you may not want to learn, but if you're going to make a career in this for years and years and years, you have to be true to yourself, as well as learn to live within the animation community. Whether you're on the fringes as an independent filmmaker, or right in the middle of it as a very commercial television or movie filmmaker. In a way, we're all kind of brothers under the skin.
We went down to see him at the Ashland Festival down there. And I said to him, hey Bill, tomorrow we're going to go to Jacksonville and look for Pinto Colvig's house. And he said, oh, can I go with you? And I said, sure. And so we spent a real nice Sunday, beautiful weather, walking around Jacksonville, Oregon, looking for Pinto Colvig's house. And we finally did. And you may ask, who is Pinto Colvig, right? Pinto Colvig was the voice of Goofy in Disney cartoons.
I love Goofy. All the Goofy learns how to ski, or Goofy learns how to play tennis, or Goofy learns how to ride the horse. In fact, if you look at my film 25 Ways to Quit Smoking, it's basically the Goofy series with smoking.
Polymptoons Incorporated, a division of the Smile Corporation. Please hold. Polymptoons Incorporated, a division of the Smile Corporation. Please
Hi,
hold.
I want to speak to Mr. Smile. No, I want to speak to Mr. Bill Plimpton.
Sir, Bill Plimpton is a very busy man. And what was your name?
I can't tell you I'm married.
Oh!
Yes, I can't tell you I'm married.
Sir, I don't care if you're Ralph Bakshi, you're gonna have to wait.
Has Bill hired you? Does he pay you a lot of money? Or does he just have you sit out here?
I get paid well.
How much?
How much? Well, I'm not
Does he
sure.
take you out? Does he get favors from you? I mean, I don't trust Plimpton. Why don't you go with a real animator?
Yeah, is that a job offer, Joe?
Oh, he's-
Joe who's married?
To studio.
Is Bill there?
Yes, this is Bill.
Hey, Bill, it's Peter DeSev.
Hey, Peter, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Are you in your speakerphone?
Yeah, I am. I'm on my speakerphone because I have your friends here who are making this documentary about you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I be perfectly honest with you. There was this big meeting we had today, and I've been concentrating on that, and I totally forgot that I was going to be meeting these guys for this conversation, which I'm very happy to have. But the first thing I said was, I know you're going to ask me. You're going to start with, like, how did you meet Bill? And I would have to say, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So I said, maybe I should call him, and they suggested that I do, and here I am, Bill.
Okay. I would guess it was probably some illustration party, Eve Quast and I don't know, Brad Holland, those guys. Remember we used to hang out in East Village?
So the short version is you don't know either.
I do not know.
No, you have no
I
idea.
do,
Yeah.
It's been one of those electric moments.
I know it. I'll never forget it. Oh, wait.
Make up something wacky.
Yeah,
really.
no, you know what? I do. No, you know what? I can't remember.
We had lunch together, and Bill was asking me, how can, he really wanted, he was serious, he really wanted to become a studio, and he wanted to know how to become a studio. And so he was really kind of asking me a lot of questions about what that meant and how it would work and one thing and another. And I told him, but I also told him, I couldn't believe that he was doing it. At the same time, I was trying to figure out how in the world I was going to get back to being a filmmaker again after being a businessman, because that's what it had become. And so I told him, you've got the absolute best of all possible worlds. We all dream of this sort of opportunity, this situation where you just kind of do your thing. But it was really interesting, and I don't know if he was convinced at that time quite that he shouldn't build a studio. But I've seen since then that I think he's become more and more convinced that that makes sense. And he saw the problems I had, following that, and probably realized there's probably something to that. Let's stick with this thing that works really well for me.
Well, the struggle's enormous. I don't know if it's much easier now. I doubt it. It was easier for a while, and it got hard again because of the computer animation guys who all are making fortunes. The struggle's enormous because deep down inside, most animators don't want to do it, and most animators don't know how to do it. Most animators do it poorly. Most animators think if you're outrageous and do something extremely ugly, that's what Bill and I do, but it's not the truth at all. So most animators don't want to do films that are thoughtful. or have a basis behind them that's different than some putrid gag.
Bill is just very laid back, and he sits by his desk and draws pretty much all day, and he's not a boss that you would, hate or, gossip or, talk about.
I've seen him get mad, sure. I've seen him get mad at me. I've seen it's happened, sure, of course. I'm a rules guy. I like to follow the rules. I look at the film festival's rules, or I look for the Academy's rules of what's eligible. How are we going to work this? What's Bill, you got to do it this way. Bill, you need this piece of paperwork. Bill, this thing that you want to do here is illegal. That goes back to what I said before. Every creative person needs somebody working for them, telling them what they can and can't do and what the best way to do it is. Are they always going to agree? Of course not, because that creative person is occasionally going to say, well, but I want to do it my way.
I mean, I imagine it must be really scary in a lot of ways that you're just giving everybody your artwork and saying, okay, put it in this machine that I don't understand, and then make something happen with it. And I'm sure for him, you feel like you have so much less control than you did before when you were able to just physically make your work appear on camera.
So he does all the animation on paper, and then we would, with a small team of people, we would start putting it together. So we were always a little bit behind him in a sense that whatever he draws, we scan and put it roughly together to see the actual animated shot.
When I first came back to Bill's to work, there is this really hilarious moment when Biljana had left the studio for a week on vacation, and she left Bill, like, every time she would leave Bill little directions on maybe how to shut down the computer. And Bill's reading the notes, and I'm the only one in the studio at this point. I barely know him, so I can't really speak up too much. And he says, okay, go to window. And then he like physically turns around and walks towards the window in the room, and then goes, find disc. Lisa, there's no disc over here by the window. And I was just like, really, Bill? Like, okay.
If there's something he really wants accented or he wants something hit, he'll definitely tell me that. He says, I really want this big, or I don't want you, nothing here. I just let the sound effects take over, because he's really into the sound effects, and rightly so, because there's so little dialogue in his movies. The sound effects tell as much story as the visual or the music side. So he's very adamant about saying stay away from the sound, stay out. There's no sound effects on what you're seeing, so he'll say stay away from that.
In Idiots and Angels, there's a number of really sort of unique sound elements in the film. And some of them worked out just great. That wasn't the problem. The problem with that particular sequence was the clock. He has this clock that starts ringing and bounces up and down on this guy's nightstand. But every time Bill came over to listen to stuff and I would play this scene, he didn't like the sound of the clock. Yet it was the one thing that he kept coming back to and never really liking until I got I put a microphone and I'm like, okay, you do it. So he did it. I mean, and I put it together, and so finally he was happy with it, right? But I swear to God, if you listen to the initial sound that I had and what ended up in the film, they're really very similar.
I like it. I got nose hair.
You do, Bill.
Sticking out everywhere. I got nose hair.
So do I, Bill. You want to see it? Right in here, is it?
I don't really care.
Hey, wait a minute. You don't care about that?
What to do? I would give it all to you.
To me? Wow.
And I wish
I feel good now.
That I could throw it all away. Okay, join in. I got nose hair.
Yeah. And it's growing.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, yep. And in my ears a little bit. I got nose hair. Yeah.
And do you care?
I don't care. No way, man.
And if I knew what to do,
I would give it all to Bill Plimpton I got nose hair. Whoop. I wish that I could throw it all away, but I wouldn't because I love Bill Plimpton. Take me home, baby. That I could throw it all away. Bill, oh my God, that was fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Once there was a ceiling fan who lived in a spare room in an old house that belonged to an old lady. He was one of the better models, an Electro-Whirl 55B. One day, the old lady bought a potted plant to liven up the spare room. And the ceiling fan fell in love.
I was talking to Bill, and we were kind of shooting out names and trying to figure out who to do this. And he said, well, I'm going to the Oscars tomorrow night. What if I find somebody there? And I kind of laughed. I said, all right, you do that, Bill. You find someone at the Oscars. So he calls me the day after the Oscars and says, what about Paul Giamatti? Well, I love Paul Giamatti, so I love the guy, yeah. He says, well, it turns out he's a big animation fan, and he'd love to do the voice. I said, you're kidding. He says, no, and he lives in New York. He'll just come whenever we need him. And so he had done it. There was a sequence I remember where we want to show that time has passed and that the woman who owns the old house that the fan is in is getting older. And it was Bill who came up with this sequence of there's a doorway, and you see the shadow of the woman walking by, and she's got the cane and then the walker and then the wheelchair. She's getting older. And that was his. It was beautiful. And I said, that's great. And he said, well, how about when she does the wheelchair, if she does a wheelie, like, And I said, no, don't. It's beautiful. It works the way it is. But that's Bill looking for and how can I twist it further? How can I find that extra joke?
When I did my album Straight Outta Linwood, I wanted to include a DVD of 6 animated music videos to go along with it. And I had a wish list of the animators I really wanted to work with, and Bill Plimpton was at the absolute top of that list. I was thrilled that he accepted the job. It was for a song called "Don't Download This Song," which was it was an original, but it was meant to be a pastiche of all those kind of overblown '80s celebrity-driven charity ballads like "We Are the World" and "Hands Across America." So Bill and I had dinner, we talked about it, and then Bill just kind of went off and made it. I usually I'm a little bit more obsessive compulsive and anal, and I tend to micromanage things, but with Bill, I didn't want to do that. You don't want to meddle with genius. You basically say, here's the job, just go do it, and I'm sure it'll be great. And of course it was. Bill's just amazing. One thing that was kind of amusing, after Bill had been working on it for a while, I subscribed to his newsletter, and he started talking about, well, I am working with one of the biggest names in pop music right now. I'm doing a music video for one of the biggest stars in the music world. And I'm thinking, wow, Bill, that's really nice. That's really flattering. And then I found out the next week he's doing the new Kanye West video.
Through old photos, interviews, and old historical documents, we've been able to piece together one of the most obscure and tragic episodes in the history of mankind. Santa, the fascist years.
What I know about those old style radio announcers was that they used to have to shout into the microphone, because the radio transmissions weren't great, So, and the radios that people had when they were listening to the radio was just a little speaker with a giant magnet trying to pull those sound waves out of the sky and be able to, so broadcasters, they used to shout, they used to shout into the microphone, and so that's what I knew I wanted to do in this piece, was to try to create like a 1940s, because it's the fascist years, which we're presently living.
The economy was in the toilet. Nobody wanted Santa's stupid, boring old toys. Christmas sucked. Meanwhile, deep in his workshop, Santa sensed the winds of change. Jolly old Saint Nick had a brainstorm. With an iron fist, he totally redirected and retooled his workshop.
Well, he's an artist, you know, and you know, I mean, sometimes artists behave strangely because they think it's a prerequisite to being an artist, you know, behaving oddly and dressing strangely or being eccentric. And then there are artists that you meet that actually are different and eccentric, and they're not acting or playing or behaving, they are.
Try as we might, the mystery is hidden deep, deep in the files of obscurity.
Mutant Aliens was inspired by a photograph I saw in Life magazine, actually, of Laika, that cosmonaut dog that was shot into space. And I got to wondering again, like where I get my ideas of mysteries of life, you know, whatever happened to Laika? Is he still up there circling the globe? You know, what the heck's, he's probably pissed off to be abandoned in space in this foreign territory. And then I thought, well, there's probably a lot of other animals up there, you know, chipmunks and monkeys and cats and, you know, all sorts of bugs and things, rats. And I wondered, what would happen if they all got together, somehow were able to get together and get their revenge? So it's basically Mutant Aliens is a revenge film, is these test animals that come back to Earth and you know, and get the guys that sent them up there, get back at them. And I thought that was a funny idea. It was a good idea, because I wanted to do monsters, creatures, but the best part was the aliens, to do all these crazy aliens. And that was, for me, why I wanted to do the film, is because I wanted to get a bunch of monsters and creepy characters who are really deep down very lovable and, you know, cute, and they really love each other, kind of thing. So that was the essence of Mutant Aliens. I was on a bus with the head of Lionsgate. So I said, "You see my film?" He said, "No, I didn't see it." And I said, "It's really great. It's called I Married a Strange Person." Some kid, you know, like 25-year-old, 20-year-old kid was standing there and says, "Oh yeah, I Married a Strange Person. That blew my mind. That was so great." And I didn't plant the kid. He was just happened to be there. And this head of Lionsgate said, you know, this is what people think. And he bought it.
Those flies are having sex!
Having sex and hearing people laugh are two of my favorite things. So I think in a perfect world, if I had sex in a movie cinema while people were laughing at my film, I would be in heaven. That would be, and I'll be drawing at the same time, drawing another film. To me, that is the perfect life.
If you go to sleep and dream and have bizarre, weird sex dreams and bizarre, gory slasher dreams or whatever, and you know, everybody has them, I guess, and most of us do a pretty good job of sort of tamping that down, and in our jobs, there's no real call to let all of that out.
She makes my Twinkie tingle, but she always rejects me.
Even though he's a perfectionist and a little bit neurotic about his perfectionism, he's also very gentle. Like there's not, you know, a dark or, I mean, there are dark bones in his body, but it's not evil dark. He's not mercenary. He's got really a very gentle soul.
So Bill hired me to do Spud on Hair High, and the salary for my work was $1,000. But I wasn't a member of SAG at the time, and so I had to join SAG. And to join SAG, it cost me $1,500. So to do Hair High, I'm $500 in the hole.
Folks, it's a wonderful fall afternoon, and it looks like we've got a full house.
It's the game of the year, our Echo Lake Fighting Cocks versus the hated crosstown rivals, the Beavers.
Bill goes to a very subconscious place, a place that would be subconscious for most of us, but I think he lives there a lot. And things that we might dream or think, boy, I had that thought, but I wouldn't tell someone I had that thought. He just puts right out there.
Can you tell us any adventures you've had with Bill?
See, over the years, I've had some pretty good adventures with Bill. There's only one problem, is I used to drink quite a lot, so I'm a little hazy on the details of the adventures. I used to have a house upstate, and I would have these sort of over-the-top bacchanalian parties, and I know Bill came to a couple of them. So we've had some crazy adventures, and either I can't remember the details or my internal editor is blocking them off in order to prevent like abject shame.
I was in New York on business or visiting or something, and whenever I go to New York, I always look Bill up. And we decided to have dinner one night, and so we met. He recommended we meet at an Italian restaurant that was not far from his flat, and we showed up at the restaurant, and it was a very unique Italian restaurant because it had recently opened. It didn't have a liquor license, and so it served wine free. All you can drink wine for free. And I thought to myself, leave it to Bill to experience New York at its fullest and still find a way to live within his means.
They flew him in here recently to introduce Idiots and Angels. And they had him in this really ritzy hotel, and we always hang out together when he comes to town. And he was showing me his room, and I go, wow, you're finally getting the respect you deserve, Bill. And he goes, well, Steve, actually, I'd rather just stay with my sister Sally and have the money so I can make my films. I mean, that's real.
And we were out to dinner with some animation faculty from Hampshire College, I believe. And it was 6 or 7 of us. And he was late for his premiere, so he had to run. And we finished dinner, and when we got to his film, we caught the end of the Q&A. He's covered in blood. His knees and hands are all like cut up, and we're looking at what happened to Bill. And apparently he was running so fast at the Q&A that he fell, and he just dogged his knees, and he dogged all his hands. And of course he just shows up to the thing, he's like, oh, hi, oh yeah, cut myself a little, and just did his Q&A. He goes, isn't it great? Blood, yeah. But he made it to the Q&A, which to him was the important thing.
Bill is he's just a normal person. He's kind of, you expect him to sort of be this wacky, freaky dude because he draws these kind of very over-the-top, avant-garde scenarios. And he's really just smart. He's a listener. He listens. I noticed that he kind of doesn't do the talking. He does the observing, like most great artists, I find.
Let's get out of here, Buttercup. This guy's nuts. He names his flies.
Well, I think that's cute.
So this is the park where I go to jog, to get some exercise. There's no gyms. I can't afford a weight room or a personal trainer. So I come to National Square Park and I run around the block here. And it was about 6 years ago, I came here to do some running. And I walked over to the exact spot where it all happened. Some guy was running his dog in the park and he was barking at a little squirrel, just about like this squirrel here. And the thought occurred to me, what the hell is a dog afraid of a squirrel for? A little harmless squirrel. I should have some nuts here. It's a little harmless squirrel, you know what? went into the dog's brain and I thought, you know, what is the dog thinking? Why is he barking at a squirrel? And so I made up this scenario that's totally ludicrous, of course, that the dog was fearful that the squirrel would attack his master and he would lose his meal ticket. And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. And so I continued running, and as I ran around the park, I think I ran around 5 times, the idea just got bigger and bigger.
Bill's best known recurring character, his Mickey Mouse, his Bugs Bunny, I guess would have to be the dog typically known as Dog. Sure, he's a guard dog, he's a horn dog, he's a hot dog, but we call him just Dog. Here, Dog! Who wants to go outside? Who wants to go outside? See, he's a dog! I am such a big fan of your work. I've seen all 3 of your films, and he likes me too. And he's humping my chest. Let's stand over here. Okay, he likes me. He's friendly, Bill. He's humping my face. That's okay. Bill, take your dog.
Is this your destiny?
To be in a graveyard? Yeah, I guess it is.
Everybody's destiny. Is being an animator your destiny?
Yeah, I think so. In my bed in the morning, you know, I daydream. I think daydreaming is really important. A lot of people are afraid of daydreaming. They feel, oh, that's what a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
But daydreaming is so important. And I remember I got in trouble in school because I would sit in class and daydream, look out the window, and oh, look at that bird. What would happen if that bird, you know, crashed into a tree or whatever? And now that I'm grown up and I'm an animator, I can still daydream and come up with these wacky ideas. For me, it's simply a matter of pleasure. People ask me, well, Bill, why do you work so hard? You know, you get up 6 in the morning, work till 8 at night, you know, you're a workaholic. And I say, no, I'm not a workaholic, I'm a hedonist. Because I just love making those drawings all the time. And I think that's the #1 reason why I make films.
Is it sometimes lonely for you to make these films because you're in your own world in your head when you're creating them all the time?
It's not a very social occupation. But that's one reason I like to come to film festivals, because then you get to meet other filmmakers, other animators who are in the same sort of situation as I am. And they have this pent-up urge to socialize. You know? Like, oh, thank God we can talk animation. We can get drunk and eat and talk about animation. So it is somewhat lonely for long periods of time.
I disregard him. He's not like the Disney classics. When I grew up, you know, I loved Beauty and the Beast, you know, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty. These are films that have beautiful pictures, beautiful images. And Polymptoons is just a bunch of ugliness, you know, sex and violence and all these animals doing it and blood everywhere. His technology is pencil and paper. I mean, who's the last person that's done pencil and paper? It's nobody does that anymore. Hello, computers, you know, CGI, get with it, Plimpton. It's the 21st century. DreamWorks or you know, Pixar, that's what's happening. You know, this animation is not where you're supposed to be. Do something else. That's my word for Plimpton, if you see it.
a gentle son of Portland, Oregon. He learned to draw what's on his mind with a pencil in hand. He took a stand, an animation redefined. They may be cartoons, but they ain't no Looney Tunes. There's a method to the madness you may find. Bill Plimpton takes us to another world. He's a master dreamcaster. His pictures are like precious pearls. Just like the tale of Sasquatch, he takes legendary up another notch. If you don't believe it, all you have to do is watch. He can look at a raging river as it rolls on down to the sea, like Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. He turns his dreams into reality. Some may have ideas they keep up on some shelf, but Bill brings them to life all by himself. Bill Plimpton takes us to another world. He's a master dreamcaster. His pictures are like precious pearls. Just like a tale of Sasquatch, he takes legendary up another notch. If you don't believe it, all you have to do is watch. If you don't believe it, all you have to do is watch.